Some places don't just keep secrets, they keep the screams, too. And sometimes, when you go searching for the truth starts searching for you. My name is Paul, and I am one of those people for whom the world's most fascinating attractions are the very ones that frighten everyone else. My interest is not merely a hobby, it is a pursuit, a need to uncover the truth behind the stories people tell about hidden fears. This same quest repeatedly draws me away from the city's crowds and to the thresholds of desolate, forgotten buildings that stand with their chests full of lost secrets and buried mysteries. One day, one such lost tale called to me. It was an old hotel, standing in a wasteland on the city's outskirts, from where only a vague shimmer of the city lights was visible. A thick layer of grime and the dust of time had settled on its structure, as if the ages had misplaced it in their forgetful march. Its broken windows and crumbling plaster walls seemed to whisper to every visitor, "Stay back. Here, time itself has stalled." Following my usual routine, I decided to survey its condition one sunny afternoon. From the outside, it seemed merely a dilapidated and disgraced structure. But the moment I peered through its splintered doorway, a heavy, dense air pressed down on my chest. The scene inside was that of a frozen storm. A layer of dust, seemingly centuries thick, coated every surface. Furniture was strewn about as if scattered by some long-past fury. Wallpaper peeled away in strips, like the building's skin was sloughing off. The air held a stagnant odor of damp earth and rotten wood that seeped into your lungs with every breath. Yet despite it all, I sensed no immediate presence or danger that set my hair on end. But one thing did capture my attention: the silence. It was a deep, burdensome silence that seemed to ring in your ears. This very silence became an invitation to return. I decided then and there that on a night the following weekend I would come back, not just to see it, but to listen for the secrets buried within its core. And then that night arrived. It was a moonlit night, but clouds shrouded the moon, as if trying to veil this clandestine meeting. I had no weapon but my faithful torch, its sharp beam my only comfort. When I stepped through the hotel's doorway, a sudden, icy gust of wind not only made the hairs on my neck stand on end, but also tested my resolve. At first, a graveyard silence prevailed, broken only by the sound of my own footsteps and the frantic beating of my heart. Summoning my courage, I opened the first door. The torchlight gradually unveiled the scene inside. The room was a living testament to time's ravages. Wallpaper was torn and hung in strips, as if some unseen hand had been clawing at it. An old bed had collapsed in on itself at its center, but the most mysterious thing was the sound coming from the bathroom. Drip, drip, drip. I slowly pushed the bathroom door open. There was an old brass tap left open, from which a thin stream of water steadily fell. The astonishing thing was that when I placed my hand under the stream, the water was intensely hot. How was this possible? The building had been shut up for years. The electricity and gas were surely cut off. So where was this hot water coming from? The question echoed in my mind. Feeling a strange sense of unease, I turned the tap off with all my strength, as if abruptly ending a silent conversation. This enigma became a splinter in my mind, fueling both my curiosity and my fear for the rest of the night. When nothing out of the ordinary happened for a while, the pressure in my chest eased slightly. I thought perhaps my own curiosity was frightening me. I cautiously stepped out and moved towards the other rooms. It was a journey of eerie uniformity. Every room seemed a carbon copy of the last, as if a malevolent spirit were replaying the same scene over and over. Scattered belongings, peeling walls, and that same thick, burdensome silence. I spent a long time opening every door, searching every corner, but found only mounds of dust and broken dreams. A peculiar disappointment began to settle within me. Had all my enthusiasm been for nothing? Did this place truly hold no secrets? I decided to head back, my footsteps heavy, my heart chastened. And then, as if the place had been waiting for my moment of disappointment, a sound tore through the air. My breath caught in my throat. I focused my torch's narrow beam towards the source of the sound, which came from a room at the very end of the hall. Every step I took was a battle. On one side, my curiosity pushed me forward. On the other, my very being was screaming at me to turn back. Just as I neared the room's wooden, rotten door, the sound stopped abruptly. This silence was far more terrifying than the sound had been. It felt as if someone was standing behind the door, holding their breath, listening to every move I made. It had heard me. I gathered my courage and pushed the door open. My hands were trembling. I gripped the cold wooden handle firmly, took a deep breath, and shoved the door. It swung open with a loud, splintering crack. The torchlight gradually illuminated the scene, and then I saw it. A woman, her face and hair matted with blood, stood facing the wall. She was ramming her head against it with a dreadful, relentless force. The thud was the sound of her skull meeting plaster. With each impact, fresh splatters of blood spread across the wall. The moment the door opened, she stopped dead. Her neck twisted at an angle impossible for a human, as if she was looking over her shoulder without turning her body. Her eyes, filled with blood, locked directly on mine. They held no pain, no plea, but a savage, empty, and unnerving gleam. And then a sound escaped her lips. It was no language I recognized. It was guttural, heavy and furious, like some ancient, cursed spirit speaking from deep beneath the mountains. She began to shriek, and on her blood-soaked feet she charged after me like a rabid animal. An adrenaline surge shot through my veins. My body was frozen between terror and astonishment. I could hear the woman's horrifying screams behind me, which were now not just sound, but also the stench of her blood and the heavy, wet slap of her footsteps keeping pace with me. My torchlight jerked wildly, dancing over debris and broken furniture, casting frantic, monstrous shadows that leapt across the walls. I took the stairs not by memory, but on a surge of pure fear. Each step a flight from death itself. Reaching the ground floor, the screaming and the footsteps vanished instantly, as if switched off mid-air. Gasping for air, I spun around. Nothing. The deserted corridor held only my ragged breaths and the sound of my own dripping sweat. I took a trembling breath, trying to convince myself it was over. I had just turned towards my car, my legs still shaking, when I heard footsteps behind me once more. This sound was different. It was lighter, almost stealthy, but with each step was a sticky, wet sensation, as if blood-soaked feet were being dragged across the floor. My heart seized in my chest again. I whipped my head around. And she was standing there, barely 10 feet from me. This time, she was silent. Her bloodied face showed no emotion, but her gaze drilled into my very soul. Her hands, caked in gore, hung limply at her sides, and fresh blood still trickled down from her forehead. I had never seen a more terrifying sight in my life, in life or death. This wasn't fear, it was pure horror. I covered the remaining distance as if my life depended on it. Getting into the car, turning the key, and slamming my foot on the accelerator felt like a blurry dream. I didn't look back. Arriving home, I immediately called a friend. The moment I got home, I checked the door locks and turned on all the lights. My body was still shaking. I called my closest friend. My voice trembled, my words tumbling over each other as I told him everything I had witnessed. He listened, and after a profound silence, he advised, "Paul, you need to call the police. What if that woman is injured, mentally ill? She might need help." It was the logical thing to do. Driven by that same fear and a sense of responsibility, I called the police. A dispassionate voice answered. I recounted my story, but my trembling voice seemed to have little effect. They said they would note it down, and I, utterly exhausted, collapsed onto my bed and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep as soon as I closed my eyes. The next morning, when I woke up, the morning light streamed into my room and I found myself in a state of peculiar anxiety. Then I saw my phone. It showed a long list of missed calls. A single private number had called repeatedly, as if someone was desperately trying to reach me. With a sinking feeling in my gut, I called back. The phone rang only once before a rough, angry voice answered immediately. "Paul, this is Inspector Evans. You've wasted our entire day." His voice was laced with sarcasm and rage in equal measure. "We have conducted a full search of your mysterious hotel. There is no woman there, no sign of any blood, no evidence of any disturbance. Do you mean to tell me you get your kicks from having my team wander around an empty building? This isn't a game. Wasting official resources like this is a crime." I tried to defend myself, to reiterate my story, but he wouldn't hear a word of it. His anger and his conviction that there was nothing there began to poison my own memories of the event. Had it all been a figment of my imagination? But the blood, the screams, the stare, could it all have just been hysteria? That thought was more frightening than the horrific truth itself. The inspector's scorn and anger rattled me for a moment, but then that scene flashed before my eyes once more, the blood, the shriek, and the unnaturally twisted neck. I found a new firmness in my voice. "Sir, I understand your position, but what I saw was not a delusion. I swear it to you. That woman was there, and she was injured." As I spoke, a memory suddenly flashed in my mind like an electric shock. "The room!" I suddenly blurted out. "The room where I saw her! On the wall, there were bloodstains. That's where she was hitting her head. Take me there, you'll see for yourself." When we arrived, the bloodstains on the wall were clearly visible. In a heavy, uneasy silence, the inspector and his colleagues led me to that room. As the door opened, a wave of hope and fear rushed through me. And there they were. Bloodstains on the wall. Clear, distinct, and looking as fresh as if they'd been made only yesterday. They were large, smeared patches with faint streaks in between, as if something wet had been pressed hard against the wall. A faint swarm of flies buzzed around them, offering silent testimony to their freshness. The inspector's anger instantly evaporated. His eyes widened, and a deep line of confusion and astonishment appeared on his face. He walked silently towards the stains, reached his hand, and then stopped. This is really," he muttered. He looked at his colleague, who stood equally baffled. "Team, sweep the entire building and the surrounding area again. Check every nook, every cranny. I want any trace of a woman found." But the result was the same. Nothing. The woman who had chased me, drenched in her own blood, had vanished into thin air. No body, no footprints, no other evidence. She existed only in those bloodstains, which told a story with no end. This incident remains an unsolved puzzle for me to this day. Now, many months later, that night is like a live wound on my mind. The questions, which have become a permanent riddle, echo within my consciousness. Was she a living woman, a victim of some unspeakable agony or madness, who had taken refuge in that desolate place? If so, how did she disappear so completely despite a full police search? Was she hidden in some secret part of the building that escaped notice? Or was she a supernatural entity, a spirit trapped in an endless loop of its past pain and trauma, whose manifestation was tied to that place? If so, then how did she leave behind physical bloodstains? Is that a sign that what is supernatural can leave its mark on our reality? And the most profound question: did she see me? Were those empty, wild eyes actually perceiving my presence? Or was I merely a spectator who had stumbled upon a tragedy stuck on repeat, like a snag in time itself? These questions revolve in my mind in an endless cycle, with no answer. And every time, when the night grows deep and silence falls, I sink back into that same fear and wonder. Not the fear that makes you run, but the deep, unsettling wonder that comes from standing before a truth that can neither be understood nor forgotten. That night, that woman, and those bloodstains are no longer just a story, but a mysterious part of my own existence, forever blurring the line between belief and doubt.